I became interested in cars probably going back to when I was 12 years old. My brothers had a couple Model A Fords that they had picked up and couldn't make them run. And of course I'd let them work on them, and then when they were all done with them I would go over and see what I could do. And I was fortunate enough to make them run. And we were raised on a farm where we had a bunch of country roads and not much else to do. And so we basically I would work on the cars to make them, and basically make them run and mess around with them and drive them down the country roads when I was way before I had a driver's license. And in our part of the country you can get a learner's permit when you're 14 years old, and I was driving long before then. Basically I messed around with the Model A's and made them run, and then I had a 56 Ford pickup truck that my dad used for the farm, and I didn't like it the way it was, so I basically started changing it, okay, and making it, because I drove it and used it. So I put different engine in it, I painted it, my mother and I did the upholstery on it and changed it all. And anyway, so that's basically, and that was all before I was the age of 16. We got the car home and I put it into the garage, and of course it was all at that point in pieces because every fender was there, extra hoods and that sort of thing was there. So I mocked it up trying to get what it may look like, okay, set it up on different jack stands and blocks, trying to say, okay, here's what it could look like with everything together. And then that's when I basically sat back and I let my imagination go and said what I really wanted to do with it. Many of people wanted to, I had friends that said, chop the roof on it, you got to chop the roof on it. No, I didn't want to. I left it the same. I knew I had some ideas that I wanted to make it smooth and finished, taking away the drip rail moldings and all the other seams and that sort of thing on it. But there was, no, we opted not to, because Henry Ford did a great job of styling the car back when it was done. It was well done. The transmission is an AOD transmission, 4-speed with the overdrive transmission, with a higher stall torque converter in it, 2800 stall torque converter. So, and the reason I wanted to go to that is basically when I'm out cruising on the highway is that I can keep my engine RPMs down. 1700 RPMs goes down the road nicely at a roughly right around that 70 to 75 miles an hour. And so engine isn't working hard, revving loud, and keeps everything nice and quiet inside the cab of the car. For the rear suspension, we chose a Ford 9-inch rear housing, which we narrowed down. And what we did is use a 4-bar link system, okay, and with a obviously on-air suspension to keep it riding smooth. We elected to go with a 3-5-5 rear end ratio in it, again trying to keep some power to the wheels when we're taking off, and then also to basically keep the RPMs down out on the highway. So it's kind of a good all-around operating rear acceleration. Because I've always loved the appearance of a super low riding car, knowing that we do have rough roads, so we got to be able to lift it up. So I knew right away that we had to put it on air suspension and have it on air suspension so that it would ride and drive right. It also, my other thought was, this thing has got to be able to drive right or I don't want it. Okay, it's just simple. I've got to make it drive and run so that it is reliable and also comfortable to drive. And so some of those things is what we've put into the car, making sure we've got proper leg room and all that sort of thing that is important, because when we are driving, we want to be comfortable. Many people gave me advice as to what I should be doing, but a couple of things that I wanted to do again was make sure it was down low, and also wanted to have the back wheels so they're sunk in, they're deep, they're tubbed is what we call it in the business. And so I wanted to have that. I had lots of people saying, no, don't worry about that, do this, whatever. This was a costly endeavor to do that, and a lot of people don't even recognize it. And of course I could have went and made it a little less, put it this way, not tubbed it and all that, and saved some money. Wouldn't have had the appearance that I wanted to have. and so we wanted to make sure that. The other thing that I did was suiciding the doors. Everybody told me that I'm absolutely crazy. Don't do that. You'll never be happy with it. Well, I just wanted a car. If I was going to build a car, it was going to have suicide doors. So that was one of the other very first things that we wanted to put into the car and try them. I was going to try them even if I failed doing it, but we succeeded. We put them in there. They worked nicely. We had to do lots of modifications to the doors, rounding off all the corners and making sure that worked to clear the front fenders, because everybody said, no, you can't do that because they're going to hit the fender. Anyway, we found a way to get around that and come up with a solution to make it work, and I've been very, very happy. Lots of people look, well, 37s never had suicide doors. You're right, they don't have suicide doors, but I wanted them, so I did it, okay? My wife actually noticed this color on a motorcycle gas tank when we were at a paint shop one day, and she says, that is kind of neat. And what's neat about it is the fact that it was a prism fluck paint that was mixed in, and a little more expensive than what we kind of wanted to be going, but it was neat. It was different, okay? And it only comes out when the sun is shining, and it has all the different colors of the rainbow, hence the prism color fluck that's in it. The seats are basically a modified T-Bird Turbo Coupe seat that we put into there. The base, the width of the seats are right and all that, so we had to narrow them down a little bit so we could have room, but I wanted to begin. They're both power seats, they're both reclining seats, and basically, again, to make the drive and the ride comfortable. The dashboard inside, we changed that slightly. We got rid of the little knob that's up on the dash that you turn to open and move the glass out. What we did there is basically get rid of that. Then we elected to put the digital dash in there, so it's all digital system, and but that was a little bit, maybe in the sunlight we thought that was going to be a little bit too hard to see when the sun shined, so we put a little bit of an eyebrow over top of it to basically so you could see better if the sun was shining in at certain angles, and it did help a lot with that. So we put an eyebrow on that one. Then we eliminated the center section where the ashtray was, and basically just put some blank stainless steel into there, smoothing it all out so we don't have any knobs or any controls on the dash. That all comes inside the console where everything is controlled there, key, headlight, all of that stuff is controlled from inside the console. On the rear of the car, we extended the tail pan down further because I didn't want the license plate. I wanted to have a home for the license plate in the middle and basically reset in below where the trunk lid was. So we extended the rear tail pan down to make room for that license plate and to have it fit in there properly. The trunk lid is an automated trunk lid. Mechanism is out of it basically for a lot of 32 Fords, same mechanism for opening and lowering the trunk. It's obviously all metal skinned trunk lid. Then onto the tail lights. The rear tail lights are something that I hope nobody else ever sees them again. Only because they're one of a kind. I basically had it in my mind, I wanted to keep all of the oval and lines, nothing square, nothing perfectly round on the car. And so the tail lights, I looked at them and I actually had seen these lights in the front of a 1998 Escort 2. They are driving light lenses. And I thought, I like the shape of those. So what we did is we took those lenses and then basically built a pot that they sit into, and then basically attached them to the fenders and basically put them into the right position and the tapering off. It's just something I wanted it to be different, and we went with the clear lens with the red LED bulb inside that helps basically so brighten up, but it just looks different because the clear lights are pretty cool looking. So we had to narrow the rear axle 8.5 inches to accommodate so for the tubbing and the wider wheels on the car. The wheels are a billet specialties. They're a 12-inch wide wheel on the back. They're 12 by 20s on the back, and so I wanted them outside to touching close to the fenders as possible. Wanted that deep look to them, okay, and also wanted to keep a good amount of rubber on the ground, and that's why the 12 inches wide tires. The fronts are 18 by 8s on the front, and they're also just the matching billet specialties, but a much smaller, narrower wheel. What we did is we put a Ford Motorsport headers on it, okay, and then we ran a complete MagnaFlow exhaust system, 2.5 inch from front to back all the way through. So it's got stainless steel exhaust system front to back, and basically and of course running it through the frame system, it all had to be hand built, and which I built myself in my shop, basically one piece at a time, and coming back out to the back end, and that's kind of a little bit unique there too. So the fuel system in the car basically starts out with it's an Edelbrock intake manifold with the Barry Grant Demon carburetor on it, 4-barrel, 750cc. The fuel is supplied by the complete Barry Grant fuel pump from the tank, basically up, using the larger lines and the larger return line to make sure the fuel flowed through efficiently without having any troubles trying to squeeze it through small lines. So basically, if the engine demanded the fuel supply, it was there for it. The 37 Ford is quite narrow in the front end. It narrows down, so you can't put some of the wider options that a person has. I was thinking like 429 big block to put it in there like that. I do like to have some power and some go when I'm driving it. But then opted for there's a smaller engine with a small block Ford in it, and that was a 427 engine. They make them in a 351 size, and then they bore them out and stroke them and to come up with that combination. And what's nice about that one, or what made me think that was the direction I wanted to go in, is because it fits in. It's a small block area, it's not wide, and it's light, and it also produces, it's 535 horsepower, and it's basically about 75 pounds lighter than any of the other engines that we looked at. And I just wanted it neat and be able to fit inside there without any trouble. So that's when we chose to go with this Ford-produced 427 engine. It was a crate engine come, then put the aluminum heads and all that onto it. Okay. The very first time when we seen it like that, basically got it home, pulled it out of the plastic crate that we have and ready to put it into it, and we had to start assembling things, i.e. the intake manifold and all the valve covers and that sort of thing. But it just knew it belonged in the car. Once I seen that, once we had everything all assembled together, it was then, and we were happy to be able to put it into there and make the right combination for the vehicle. Due to the fact that we didn't shop it, I was able to use the original window or original glass patterns for making the glass. Side windows, back glass, etc. is all basically stock 1937 windows. Of course, they're tinted and that sort of thing by a glass shop because I just didn't want the clear glass in them. I preferred the tinted. The windshield is a little different. The windshield normally comes with a split glass, flat glass. This one here is changed, modified. And I didn't like the V-butt. Lots of people do that. I guess they're okay. I didn't want it in this one. So I went with the one-piece glass windshield, and basically so it has a bit of a bend right in the middle, and it gets rid of that original bar that's up and down, and I didn't want that look on this car at all. So we eliminated that bar and went to the one-piece windshield. The cooling system is by Griffin, okay, the radiator, and then also a high-flow water pump system to keep it moving fast. Front brakes are a Wilwood combination of 13-inch rotors along with the Wilwood calipers. I guess if you're going to have lots of go, you better have some whoa. And so what I chose to put it was a Mustang 2 front suspension. TCI is who builds the upper and lower control arms, and then the cross beam is done by Height. Like that is what I mounted in on the frame, on the original frame, to get. So then I wanted to make sure I put it on air again for the smooth ride, so I can adjust the control. 1937 Ford was the first year with the headlights in the fenders, and these are the stock headlights that are in there. They're basically exactly the same. That's how they were and where they were built, and basically improved them by putting halogen headlamps into them, making them so that they're much brighter and better to drive. And the other one is the grille. The grille is exactly the same as the stock one. This one here is a custom built with the little bars in it, much sturdier. The only thing different on it is when people look at it is it's built better and finished better. It doesn't have the little crank hole that where the 1937 Ford had down at the bottom. And so you can't see that one on this one. And this one here is much smoother, finished off, and it's got the nicer lines on it. But absolutely the same grille as the stock one. The other thing I've used on the front end of that is the Flaming River power steering front end. Okay, so it steers and drives. I want it to be comfortable and easy to drive. Taking on a project like this can be very overwhelming. You've got to break it up into small little pieces and basically work it through. And sometimes you can feel and get that defeated feeling. I was very fortunate. My wife said, no, whatever, you can do it. You'll figure it out. Okay, very supportive. Sometimes I just had to back away from it altogether and basically give myself a day or two of a break and just thinking about what it should be and how it should work to make sure everything, I guess, the fit, the finish, the functioning of everything. So yeah, it's quite overwhelming. You can get in and you say, okay, and lots of people do that. I've got lots of friends that still have their cars sitting in their shop, okay? Haven't gone anywhere because it became overwhelming, became interested in other things, and that's where you need a good support group from friends and all that saying, hey, you can go ahead and finish it. If you were about to start and thought, I wanted to build myself a hot rod, okay, and you were looking for some advice from myself like that, basically you have to have a big plan, okay? They're generally what you want the car to look like at the end, okay? Lots of people sketch it out and do all that kind of things. My sketch was basically right up in my head. It never changed and that sort of thing. And so I knew what I wanted to end up with, the looking of the car, the vision of it, I guess is probably the proper word for it. But for those who are looking at building one, that's number one. Number two is make sure you have a lot of patience, a lot of time basically to work at it, and just take one little thing at a time.